The sudden evening downpour left the city soaked and somber. The drops of water trickling down the taxi window seemed to mirror the restlessness in my soul. I dragged my suitcase through the lobby of the building with a small joy bubbling inside me. I had finished my business trip a day ahead of schedule. The incredibly difficult contract had finally been signed. For 10 years, I had poured myself into my work, financially supporting our entire family, transforming myself from a fragile girl into a formidable woman in the business world, all so that Liam, my husband, could pursue his own passions without financial pressure. I promised myself that tonight I would prepare a fantastic home-cooked meal to make up for all the days he had been eating takeout. The fatigue from the long flight seemed to vanish as I imagined his smile when he saw me arrive home early. However, my steps came to a dead halt just as I entered our familiar parking garage at Spot P15, for which I had paid over $75,000. In that prime location, instead of my empty car space, a flashy red Mini Cooper was parked. I narrowed my eyes to see the license plate, and a sense of unease ran through me like a shiver. It was the car of Sophia, my sister-in-law. I wondered to myself, today is Tuesday. Gavin, my younger brother, is supervising a construction project upstate. Sophia should be at her office or at her parents' house. Why would she have come all the way here during work hours? A vague suspicion arose in my mind, but I quickly dismissed it, reassuring myself that perhaps she had come to ask her brother-in-law for help with something urgent or simply to drop something off for Gavin. I dragged my suitcase towards the elevator. The squeak of the wheels echoed in the silence of the garage, strangely shrill. In the elevator, I observed my reflection in the stainless steel mirror. A 5-year-old woman in an impeccable business suit, but with a face that already showed the weariness of time, with deep dark circles from sleepless nights preparing for presentations. I sighed, wondering if Liam would notice how much I had aged or if, to him, I was still just a tireless money-making machine. The elevator door opened on the 18th floor. The hallway was deserted. Only my footsteps could be heard on the tiles. I tiptoed towards our apartment, intending to give my husband a little surprise. I didn't ring the bell or use the key. I simply slid my finger over the fingerprint scanner. The latch opened with a soft click, like a sigh. The house was plunged into a silent gloom. With the curtains drawn, the air was permeated with the scent of the lavender essential oil I often used, but today it seemed mixed with another strange and unfamiliar smell. I took off my heels, just as I was about to call out to him. A peculiar sound coming from the master bedroom made a lump form in my throat. It wasn't the television or a normal conversation. It was the broken moans of a woman mixed with the heavy, ragged breathing of a man. I froze, as rigid as if I had been encased in cement. The blood seemed to freeze in my veins and then boil and rush to my head. Holding my breath, I crept silently towards the half-open bedroom door. A small sliver of light filtered from inside, enough to see what was happening on our marital bed. On the luxurious gray Egyptian cotton sheets that I myself had changed before leaving on my trip, 2 bodies were entwined in a frenzied passion. And the woman was none other than Sophia, my sister-in-law, whom I had always loved and protected like a sister. Liam's voice sounded hoarse and thick with desire. "You're so incredible, so pure, not like that old hag I'm married to. God, I don't even get excited looking at her anymore. She's just a dried-up stick who only knows how to make money." Sophia let out a little giggle. Her voice was cloyingly childish. "And yet you're scared to death of her. What if she comes back suddenly?" Liam laughed with contempt. "Scared of what? She said she's coming back tomorrow. And if she did show up, I'd just tell her you came over to ask for help fixing a leaky faucet. That fool believes anything. She believes every word I say." My ears were ringing. I felt the floor sink beneath my feet. I had to cover my mouth tightly to stifle a sob. 10 years of my youth, 10 years of sacrifice. And what did I receive in return? The word fool, and this infamous betrayal. Rage consumed me. I wanted to launch myself at them and tear apart that adulterous pair, but the logic of a businesswoman held me back at the last second. Trembling, I pulled my phone from my jacket pocket, activated video mode, and aimed the lens through the narrow crack. 2 minutes. It only took 2 minutes to record the entire raw and dirty truth. 2 minutes to bury the marriage I had once revered. When I finished recording, I backed away silently, grabbed my suitcase, closed the door gently, and left the house like a ghost, taking a heart shattered into a million pieces with me. I don't know how I got out of the building. I only know that sitting in the taxi, my whole body trembled with a violent chill. I asked the taxi driver to take me to Evelyn's house, my best friend and lawyer, the only person I could trust at that moment. I was afraid that if I stayed alone, I would do something crazy or completely fall apart. Evelyn greeted me with a look of horror when she saw me standing at her door with my suitcase and a face so pale it looked drained of blood. When I showed her the 2-minute video, she, known for her composure and sharpness in court, couldn't help but let out a bitter curse. Evelyn grabbed my hand tightly. Her eyes burned, but her voice was incredibly firm. "Amelia, listen to me carefully. Do not make a scene under any circumstances. If you do, you lose. You will lose your dignity and your assets. You have to stay calm, ruin them, and make sure they leave with nothing. Understood?" Evelyn's words were like a bucket of cold water that brought me back to some semblance of sanity. She was right. I am Amelia, a woman who has fought in the business world for years. I couldn't let my emotions destroy me now. They had trampled on my pride, our family ties, and our marriage. I would return that pain to them, multiplied by 10. After resting for a few hours at Evelyn's house to regain my strength, I carefully applied makeup to hide my swollen eyes and haggard face. Then I dragged my suitcase back home after it was completely dark. I took a deep breath in front of the door, telling myself that I was about to step onto a grand stage and that I had to be the best actress. I opened the door, this time making noise on purpose, and called out loudly, "Honey, I'm home. I missed you so much." There was a brief, unsettling silence, followed by the sound of hurried footsteps. Liam appeared from the bedroom, already dressed in immaculate pajamas, but his hair was still slightly disheveled, and there was a hint of panic on his face that he hadn't managed to hide. He rushed towards me to take my suitcase, smiling from ear to ear, although his eyes never stopped scanning my expression. "Wow, didn't you say you were coming back tomorrow? What a surprise. Why didn't you call me so I could pick you up from the airport?" I smiled, a smile that felt sickeningly fake as I caressed his arm. "The project finished early, so I changed my ticket. I wanted to surprise my love. Aren't you happy?" Liam hugged me with a forced laugh. "Of course, I'm happy. My wife coming home is the best thing that could happen to me. I've missed you like crazy." His embrace sent a shiver down my spine, but I stood still. My sharp woman's sense of smell immediately detected something wrong. Although Liam had opened all the windows to air out the room and had probably sprayed half a can of air freshener, the sweet, intense aroma of a very specific perfume still lingered in the air. J'adore by Dior was Sophia's signature fragrance, and I had given her that very bottle for her birthday last year. That perfume was now irrefutable proof. Proof of her presence in this house, on my husband's body, and probably in my own bed. I pulled away from his embrace, feigning exhaustion, and headed for the bedroom. "I'm exhausted. I'm going to take a shower and go to bed." Upon entering the room, the first thing that caught my attention was an almost unnatural orderliness, and what struck me most were the sheets. I remembered perfectly having put on a set of gray Egyptian cotton sheets before I left. But now, in their place, was a cheap set of pastel pink cotton sheets that I had banished to the back of the linen closet long ago. I turned to Liam with an expression of feigned surprise. "Oh, why did you change the sheets? I had just put the other ones on." Liam started and stammered for a couple of seconds before offering a quick explanation. "Oh, yeah. This afternoon, while watching TV, I spilled a cup of coffee on the bed and it stained everything, so I threw them in the wash. I took these out to make do." It was a lie so clumsy that even a child would have seen through it, but I just nodded with a slight smile. "Wow, you're so clumsy. Well, I'll wash them again tomorrow." I went into the bathroom, closed the door, and turned the shower on full blast. Under the stream of water, I didn't cry. I looked at myself in the mirror with dry, cold eyes. In the stillness of the night, the ticking of the wall clock resonated, each sharp sound like a hammer blow to my bleeding heart. Liam slept beside me. His breathing was regular. That broad back, which I once considered my greatest refuge, now felt strange and terribly cold. I curled up on the edge of the bed, trying to make myself as small as possible so as not to touch his skin. The feeling of disgust I had felt since the afternoon still clung to me like a layer of mud, impossible to wash away. I lay with my eyes open, staring at the dark ceiling, wondering how a person could change so much in such a short time. 10 years of sharing everything. Wasn't that worth more than a moment of fleeting pleasure? I waited until the clock struck 2 a.m. Liam's snores became deeper and more constant. I knew my moment had come. Holding my breath, I turned with slow, cautious movements, like a thief operating in her own home. The light from the nightstand illuminated Liam's face. He slept peacefully, without a trace of guilt or worry. That only fueled the fury inside me. With extreme care, I took his hand, the same hand that had held mine tightly on our wedding day. Now I used it to unlock his phone, which was on the nightstand. The screen lit up, its bluish light casting a glacial glow on my face. I quickly lowered the brightness and began my silent investigation. WhatsApp, Instagram, text messages, everything was spotless, like a blank slate, not a single trace, not a single suspicious message. That perfect cleanliness was proof of his meticulous preparation. But I was not a naive and easily fooled woman. I knew all too well the tricks of men who want to hide secrets. I delved into the app settings, looking for hidden folders cleverly disguised as work management software. And sure enough, a secure messaging app appeared that required a numerical password. I tried his date of birth without success. Our wedding anniversary didn't work either. Finally, I entered the date of birth of Sophia, my sister-in-law. The screen unlocked instantly, revealing an avalanche of messages. The images were so vulgar that I had to close my eyes to suppress the nausea. But that wasn't all. Trembling, I accessed his banking app, which I, trusting, let him manage. The transaction history appeared like a devastating verdict. The numbers danced before my eyes, and I felt as if someone were squeezing my heart. Transfer of $5,200. Memo, for my sweetheart. Transfer of $13,140. Memo, a life with you. These romantic gestures were being funded by our joint account. And worst of all, a transaction from last week. A credit card payment of $10,000 at a luxury jewelry store. I remembered that day Liam had come home looking defeated, complaining that his company was doing poorly, that they had cut bonuses, and that he couldn't contribute to household expenses that month. At that moment, feeling sorry for him, I believed him. Not only did I not ask for anything, but I transferred money to his account to give him some breathing room. It turned out that my generosity and trust had served to let him embezzle family funds and buy expensive jewelry for his mistress. I took screenshots of everything, every message, every transfer. My hands trembled so much I almost dropped the phone. After sending all the evidence to my own phone and erasing any trace of my access, I put his phone back where it was. I lay down, but my body was freezing, as if I had just stepped out of a cold storage room. The next morning, I got up earlier than usual and prepared a full breakfast, as always, but my heart was completely cold. Liam came out of the bedroom, stretching and yawning. Seeing me set the table, he smiled. What a diligent wife. Breakfast is already ready. I served him a bowl of oatmeal and placed it in front of him. I tried to make my voice sound normal, but my eyes, sharp as knives, scrutinized him. Eat up while it's hot. Hey, by the way, when I came back yesterday, I saw Sophia's car parked in our spot. Strange, isn't it? Gavin wasn't around. What was she doing here during office hours? I thought she'd be working. Liam, who was bringing a spoonful to his mouth, was so startled that the spoon fell with a clatter into the bowl, splashing the table. His face turned pale instantly. He quickly bent down to pick it up, hiding his nervousness. Oh, yeah. Well, I guess she came to drop something off for Gavin. I don't really know. I was in the study all day. I watched his clumsiness, feeling an indescribable bitterness. This man, whom I once considered my everything, was now just a clumsy, cowardly liar. I smiled, a faded smile. Oh, really? I thought you would know. The doorman told me her car was parked there for a long time, all afternoon. Liam fell silent, eating with his head down, not daring to look at me even once. The atmosphere at breakfast became thick, heavy, as if a weight was crushing our chests. After the spoon incident, Liam became much more cautious. He walked on tiptoe, spoke in a low voice, and constantly cast furtive glances at me. Every time I picked up my phone, his body tensed. I knew the prey was beginning to smell danger, but the trap I had set was just beginning to close. That night, I came home later than usual on purpose, to make him wait for me for dinner with anxiety. When I walked in, the dinner was cold, and he was sitting on the sofa with a look of unease. Seeing me, he jumped up to reheat the food. This excessive kindness was even more repulsive to me because I knew that behind that false concern lay a universe of guilt. During dinner, as I served him a piece of salmon, I let a question drop into the air, as light as a breeze. "Honey, you've been sleeping poorly lately. You look terrible." Liam paused for a moment and then forced a smile. "Well, sometimes I have a lot of stress at work. It's a little hard for me to sleep." "Why do you ask?" I put down my silverware and looked him straight in the eye. My gaze was no longer that of a sweet wife, but one that held a sharp suspicion. "It's just that today, when I was leaving, the doorman stopped me to ask something. He says that on the nights I was away, he saw you leaving with the car in the middle of the night and coming back almost at dawn. I told him he must have been mistaken, that you sleep like a log, but he insisted he saw our car's license plate." Liam's face went from red to pale white. He almost choked on the bite he was chewing. He grabbed his glass of water and drank a long gulp to calm down. His eyes darted around, avoiding my direct gaze. Beads of sweat started to form on his forehead, even though the air conditioning was set to 72 degrees. That doorman, he must be getting old and seeing things. Where would I go at that hour? "That's ridiculous." His voice had become abnormally high-pitched, a clear sign of someone who feels caught and is trying to cover up the truth. I sighed, feigning genuine concern, and placed my hand on his forehead. I told him that too, but he described it to me in great detail. He said the car was heading towards the suburbs. "I'm getting worried. What if you're sleepwalking?" I read online that many people with stress do things unconsciously at night and don't remember anything in the morning. "What if we go to the doctor tomorrow?" "It's dangerous. If something happens to you on the road, what would become of me?" My words, loaded with apparent solicitude, were actually a vice tightening around his terrified mind. I was executing my plan. To plant in his head the fear that his secret escapades had been discovered, but under a guise of innocence. Liam pushed my hand away, visibly agitated, and got up to pace the living room. No, it's not necessary. It's probably just that. I'm sleepwalking. I've been very tense lately. I'll regulate myself. I'll have some chamomile tea, and that's it. No need to spend money on doctors." I followed his back with my eyes, smiling to myself. If he was clinging to an excuse as ridiculous as sleepwalking, it meant that fear had already overcome his reasoning. I continued with another psychological blow. "Well, be very careful. I've heard that if you wake up a sleepwalker suddenly, they can suffer a shock. And the doorman also told me that one of those nights he thought he saw your car in the area of Sophia's house. I guess you were worried she was alone, and you went to check on her, right?" "You're so thoughtful." My last sentence was like a fatal stab. Liam froze in place. He turned abruptly to look at me, his eyes wide with panic. "What? That's not true. Don't listen to nonsense. I'm going to bed. I have a headache." With that, he fled to the bedroom like a fugitive and slammed the door. I was left alone with the half-eaten dinner. I took a sip of cold soup. A bitter taste spread through my mouth. His fear was exactly what I wanted to see. I wanted him to live with constant anguish, unable to eat or sleep in peace, just like me at that moment. That night, Liam tossed and turned in bed, unable to sleep. He turned over and over, and from time to time, he would sneak a look at his phone to type a message that he would quickly delete. I had my back to him, pretending to be fast asleep, but I heard every one of his labored breaths. I knew those messages were for Sophia, to warn her of the danger and plan a strategy. Go on, worry. Go on, plan. Because the more you squirm, the deeper you will sink into the mire I have prepared for you. The night enveloped the room, but inside me, a flame of vengeance burned, illuminating the darkest corners of this marriage. The next morning, I left the house earlier than usual, with the excuse of an important meeting. In reality, I had an appointment with the private detective Evelyn had recommended. The cafe, located in a quiet alley, was completely isolated from the city's bustle. The detective handed me a thick, brown envelope, looking at me with a mixture of compassion and professionalism. I took a deep breath and with trembling hands, I opened the envelope. Although I had prepared myself mentally, when I saw the photos inside, I felt as if someone had punched me in the chest, a pain that left me breathless. It turned out they didn't need to wait for the night or my business trips. Liam and Sophia had turned their lunch break into their ideal time for dates. In those sharp photographs, they were sitting in discreet cafes, holding hands, looking at each other with the passion of new lovers. In one photo, Liam was tenderly wiping Sophia's mouth. The smile on his face was so radiant and sweet that I was stunned. It had been a long time since he had smiled at me like that. There were other photos of them entering an hourly rate motel tucked away in an alley together, and coming out an hour later looking satisfied, their clothes disheveled. I flipped through the photos one by one. Each was irrefutable proof of the infamous betrayal by the two people closest to me. They were not only cheating on me and Gavin, but they were trampling on the most basic morality in broad daylight. I remembered the times I had called Liam at noon, and he would whisper that he was in a meeting or taking a nap at the office because he was exhausted. It turned out his exhaustion came from serving his mistress. Disgust washed over me. It made me nauseous to think that I had shared a bed with this man, that I had trusted him blindly. I put the photos in my purse, paid the detective, and drove to the office. I spent the whole day working like an automaton, trying to bury myself in paperwork so I wouldn't think about those dirty images. In the afternoon, when I got home, Liam once again played the role of the exemplary husband. He came out to greet me enthusiastically, asking if I was tired, if I wanted him to prepare something special for dinner. Seeing his hypocritical face, I just wanted to scream at him that I knew everything, but I held back. "I'm a little tired. It must be the change in weather. You eat if you want. I'm going to rest for a bit." Liam seemed disappointed, but he insisted on being attentive. He followed me to the bedroom, sat on the edge of the bed, and raised his hand to give me a shoulder massage. "Let me give you a massage. You work too hard for this family." As soon as his hand touched my shoulder, I flinched and pulled away as if I had touched something disgusting. My instinctive reaction left him paralyzed, his hands suspended in midair. "No, honey, my body hurts a lot. Don't touch me. Let me lie down for a while and it will pass." I hurried to find an excuse, covering myself with the blanket to hide the disgust on my face. Liam withdrew his hand with a shadow of doubt in his eyes that quickly turned into resignation. "Well, then rest. I'm going to watch TV to let you sleep." When the door closed, I could finally breathe. Tears welled up, soaking the pillow. I wasn't crying for him. I was crying for myself, for my 10 years of youth wasted on the wrong person. The feeling of being betrayed, of being belittled, hurts more than any physical wound. It was eating away at my soul little by little, turning me from a woman full of love into a block of ice. That night, Liam got into bed again and tried to hug me from behind. His warm breath on my neck made my skin crawl. His hands started to search for me, seeking intimacy, but my body remained rigid. I firmly pushed his hand away. "I told you I'm tired. Let me sleep." Liam sighed deeply, turned over, and muttered something, clearly dissatisfied. I lay motionless with my eyes open in the darkness, listening to his sighs. My heart was a block of ice. Physical contact with him had become a torture. I couldn't bear to share a bed with a man who had just been rolling around with another woman, who was also my sister-in-law. The physical distance was the first sign that this marriage was clinically dead, but Liam, in his arrogance, believing his deception was perfect, had not yet realized the danger looming over him. He still thought my fatigue was temporary, or that I was angry about some trivial thing. He didn't know that I was accumulating evidence, accumulating hatred, to prepare the most terrible punishment for him. Those lunch dates, those secretly intertwined hands, would all be part of the sentence I had reserved for him, and that day was not far off. With the evidence of infidelity in my possession, I decided to move on to the next phase of my plan, to examine the lifeblood of our marriage, the finances. I knew that Liam valued money enormously. He was with me partly because I was the main breadwinner of the house, while his career was mediocre, and he depended on my influence to get connections. I needed to confirm how much of the family's money he had diverted to support his mistress. And more importantly, I wanted to see his reaction when I cornered him on the subject of money. One weekend night, I prepared a more elaborate dinner than usual. I served him a glass of his favorite Cabernet and created a relaxed and cheerful atmosphere. When Liam was a little tipsy, his face red and chattering about grand plans, I began to speak softly. "Honey, I went to see a plot of land in the suburbs today. It's beautiful, an excellent location, and the price is a steal because the owner needs the money urgently. I was thinking of taking out our joint savings to make a down payment. It would be a shame to let such an opportunity pass." As I spoke, I watched his expression carefully. As expected, the smile vanished from his face instantly. The wine glass he was holding trembled slightly. His eyes, clouded by alcohol, suddenly became lucid and alarmed. He put the glass down on the table, swallowed hard, and stammered. "Land? The market is frozen right now. Buying now is a disaster. And why do you want to take out the money so suddenly, without consulting me first?" I smiled with a sweet but firm voice. "Precisely because it's a steal, I am consulting you. The money in the bank barely earns any interest. Investing in land is what brings returns. Let's go to the bank together tomorrow, okay? We'll take out about $150,000 and we'll figure out the rest." Upon hearing the figure of $150,000, his face changed color and sweat began to bead on his forehead. "150,000? Calm down a bit. The thing is, actually," he hesitated, his eyes desperately searching for a plausible excuse. "Actually what?" I pressed him, my sharp gaze penetrating his conscience. Liam took a deep breath and blurted out the lie I had already anticipated. "Actually, I've put all our savings into the stock market. The market has plummeted, and I'm trapped. I can't sell now. If we sell, we'll lose a lot. Almost half. Give me some time to see if the market recovers." The stock market excuse. A classic from husbands who spend family money in secret. I knew perfectly well that he had never invested in stocks, or if he had, it was with insignificant amounts. I knew from my own investigations that he had been slowly withdrawing that money, transferring it to a secret account from which it flowed into Sophia's pockets, or was used to make installment payments on a small apartment in his mother's name. But I pretended to believe him, sighing with an air of disappointment. "My God, why do you do these things without telling me? It's the money we've saved for years, and now you say we've lost half." That was very reckless. Seeing that I seemed to have believed him, Liam sighed in relief and took my hand to justify himself. "I just wanted to earn a little more for our future. Really, I didn't expect to have such bad luck. Come on, don't be angry. I promise that as soon as I recover what I invested, I'll take it all out and give it to you to manage, okay?" I looked at his pleading, cowardly face, feeling immense contempt. The future he was talking about was actually his and his mistress's, built on my sweat and tears. I pulled my hand away and stood up coldly to clear the dishes. "It's fine, you'll figure it out. But know that I won't forgive losing that money. I'll let it go this time, but don't let me find out you're hiding anything else from me." I turned my back and went to the kitchen, leaving him sitting there with an expression of relief mixed with unease. He thought he had fooled me, that he had gotten away with it, but he didn't know that the stock market excuse had just sealed his fate. I had confirmed what I needed to know. The money was gone, and the trust was exhausted. The betrayal was now total, encompassing body, feelings, and finances. He had taken everything we had to feed an illicit relationship. That night, as I listened to Liam's sighs, my mind no longer entertained plans of reconciliation. Instead, there were figures, legal steps to recover what was mine. I would get my money back, down to the last cent, and the price he would pay would not be just monetary, but would include the honor and career he so craved. That weekend, a cold north wind brought winter with it, seeping into every corner of the city. But the cold of the weather could not compare to the ice in my heart. My parents called, saying it had been a long time since we had all gathered, and they wanted us to come for lunch to warm up. I accepted immediately. In my mind, I was already calculating that this would be the perfect stage for the next act of my play. When Liam and I arrived, Gavin and Sophia had just arrived as well. Gavin, as always, was simple, in a worn-out jacket and with hands calloused from work at the construction site, carrying several bags of groceries for my parents. Seeing my brother, so hard-working and kind, and then Sophia by his side, I felt a pang of pain and rage. Sophia was spectacularly dressed today, very different from how she usually was. She wore a tight-fitting wool dress that hugged her curves, a cream-colored coat, and perfect makeup that enhanced her beauty. But what caught my attention most was not her appearance, but the object glittering at her neck under the living room light. It was a white gold necklace with a small diamond that gave off a captivating and expensive light. I recognized it instantly. It was the result of that $10,000 transaction at the luxury jewelry store I had seen on Liam's bank statement. The money he had told me he didn't have because his bonus had been cut. The meal proceeded in a lively atmosphere. My parents were happy to see the whole family gathered. Gavin couldn't stop serving his wife food, peeling her shrimp, looking at her with boundless love and pride. My naive brother didn't know that the woman he was caring for so attentively wore the proof of a betrayal bought with the sweat and tears of his own sister on her neck. I swallowed the food as if it were stones, with a lump in my throat, but I kept smiling the most serene smile I could muster. When everyone had eaten and was relaxed, I put down my silverware and, as if I had just noticed, I looked at Sophia and exclaimed with admiration, "What a beautiful necklace, Sophia. You can tell from a mile away that it's good quality. That design is very fashionable. Did you just buy it?" My question was like a stone thrown into a calm lake, creating ripples across the whole table. All eyes turned to Sophia's neck. Liam, who was next to me, froze with his glass in hand. His face lost all color. He coughed and bent over to hide his panic. Sophia was startled and instinctively touched her necklace. She quickly looked at Liam for help, but only found his cowardly evasion. She stammered. Her smile became forced and strange. "No way, Amelia. This is just costume jewelry. I bought it online for fun. It's super cheap. Where would I get the money to buy something nice?" I exclaimed with a tone of false disappointment, but with a gaze as cold as steel. "Oh, really? It looked like a real diamond with that sparkle. But it looks great on you. It gives you a very elegant air. Don't you think so, Gavin?" Gavin, who was eating, looked up and smiled from ear to ear, nodding. "Yes, everything looks good on my wife. I keep telling her not to wear so much costume jewelry, in case she gets an allergy, but she loves it." Gavin's innocent response hurt me even more. Sophia sighed in relief, seeing that her husband suspected nothing, but she didn't dare look me in the eye. I turned to Liam and patted his shoulder with a sweet but intentional tone. "Look, honey, your sister-in-law looks beautiful even in costume jewelry, and I, on the other hand, never wear anything. Why don't you buy me one just like it one of these days?" "I love this style." Liam was startled. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the cold. He laughed nervously. His voice trembled. Yes, I'll see if I have the money and I'll buy it for you. Come on, eat. Your soup is getting cold." I observed the pathetic scene of the two traitors, smiling to myself. Keep acting, keep lying. That necklace may be fake in Sophia's lies, but your guilt is real. Your shamelessness is real. I put a piece of chicken on Liam's plate with the affectionate gesture of a devoted wife. But in my heart, the love of a wife had died the moment I saw the fear in his eyes. The following days, I maintained a strangely calm demeanor, but inside, I was meticulously calculating my next move. I knew that attacking his finances or his feelings was not enough. I had to hit Liam where it hurt the most: his pride, his reputation. The opportunity came when his company organized its annual client appreciation party. It was an important event attended by all the executives with their spouses. And, of course, I, as the wife of a department head, was invited to present a good image. I chose an elegant navy blue evening gown and seductive makeup. I wanted to look stunning, not to regain Liam's attention, but so that everyone could see the perfect wife he was cheating on. At the party, amidst the soft music and the sparkle of chandeliers, I quickly identified my target: Mrs. Gable, the wife of the deputy director. Mrs. Gable was known for being the company's loudspeaker, a woman who loved gossip and was always looking for juicy news to liven up her social gatherings. With a glass of champagne in hand, I approached her while she was boasting about her new emerald ring. After a few minutes of trivial chat about fashion and beauty, I sighed with an air of melancholy. Mrs. Gable, shrewd as she was, noticed immediately, leaned in, and whispered curiously, "What's wrong, Amelia? You don't seem very happy. Did that good-for-nothing Liam do something to you?" I looked around as if afraid someone would hear us, and led her to a more discreet corner, speaking in a low voice, with a tone of confidence and concern. "Oh, Carol, I'm telling you because I consider you a friend. Please don't tell anyone. I'm so embarrassed." Mrs. Gable's eyes lit up like beacons. She nodded repeatedly. "Of course, my dear. Between us, my lips are sealed. Whatever you tell me goes with me to the grave." I bit my lip, hesitating for a moment before speaking. "It's just that I've been very worried lately. The days I was on my trip, the doorman of my building told me he saw my husband's car leaving in the middle of the night and coming back almost at dawn. And the strangest thing is that there was always a woman in the passenger seat. I trust my husband completely. He's a good man, a bit dull, but I've heard rumors. They say the woman's silhouette was very familiar, that she looked like my sister-in-law." Mrs. Gable's jaw dropped. She almost dropped her champagne flute. She stammered, "What? Your sister-in-law? But are you sure? What a scandal!" I quickly waved my hands in panic, as if I had let it slip. "Oh no, it's just rumors. I'm sure people are mistaken. Or maybe Liam was just giving her a ride somewhere since they're family. Please don't think badly of him. I'm just worried that malicious gossip could harm him at the company." The more I defended him, the more convinced Mrs. Gable became of the conspiracy. She patted my arm with a look of compassion mixed with the excitement of having a scoop. "Oh, you poor thing. You're too good for your own good. In this day and age, you can't trust anyone, especially family. Don't you worry. I'll keep an eye out to see if there are any vixens sniffing around your husband." With tears in my eyes, I thanked her, while inwardly I smiled with disdain. I knew Mrs. Gable perfectly. As soon as I turned around, she would embellish the story and tell it to at least 10 other people during the party, starting with her classic, "Let me tell you something, but don't tell anyone." The rumor would spread like a toxic wind, sowing doubt and contempt over Liam's head. That night, as I walked on my husband's arm, receiving compliments on how happy and good we looked together, I felt the stares and whispers behind our backs, the laughter laden with double meanings. Liam, oblivious to it all, smiled and toasted, unaware that a storm of public opinion was brewing over him, and that the person who had unleashed it was his own wife. The feeling of using the world's gossip to punish a traitor was both cruel and strangely satisfying. Just as I had predicted, the toxic wind of rumor took effect with dizzying speed. Within a few days of the party, the atmosphere at home became suffocating. Liam would come home from work with a scowl, throwing his briefcase onto the sofa in anger. The strong smell of alcohol on his breath was unmistakable. I, who was reading, put down my book and, feigning concern, ran to take off his jacket. "Have you been drinking? Why so much today? Did something happen at the office?" Liam pushed my hand away and slumped heavily onto the sofa, loosening his tie as if he were being strangled. He grumbled, "It's those gossiping old biddies, always making things up to tarnish people's names." I served him a glass of water with lemon and sat beside him, stroking his back, which was agitated with anger. My voice was innocence personified. "What is it, honey? Who said something about you? Tell me." He who has nothing to hide has nothing to fear. If we live with a clear conscience, what do we care what others say? Liam turned to look at me with bloodshot eyes. He stared at me intently, as if trying to guess if I knew something or if I was also part of the gossip. But my face only reflected concern and absolute trust, which made him lower his gaze and sigh. "You don't know anything. They're saying around the office. They're saying I'm having an affair, and with, you'd better not hear it. It would dirty your ears. They're just jealous. Since they know I'm up for a promotion to deputy director, they're trying to tear me down." Inwardly, I smiled. "So, you also know what pain and humiliation feel like when people whisper behind your back." I continued to add fuel to the fire with my usual sweet tone. Well, who can control wagging tongues? It's probably because you help everyone and you're very attractive, and people are envious of you. But don't react so harshly. The more you defend yourself, the more they'll think it's true. Just ignore them and go on with your life. If you're innocent, no one can do anything to you. My phrase, the more you defend yourself, the more they'll think it's true, was like a needle stuck in a sensitive spot. Liam started, turned and muttered, "Yes, I haven't done anything, so I have nothing to fear. It's just that it bothers me." But I clearly saw his hand trembling, not from anger, but from fear. He was afraid the truth would come out, that the rumors were not just air, but the smoke that precedes a fire. That night, Liam didn't eat dinner. He locked himself in the bathroom and let the water run for a long time, as if he wanted to wash away the dirty words that had stuck to his body. From the living room, listening to the sound of the water, I felt a strange indifference. He was suffering because his honor had been sullied. But did he think of my honor or Gavin's when he committed his depraved acts? He looked down on me for being a workaholic, but it was that same woman who, step by step, was tightening the noose around his neck. And he still thought it was a loving embrace. Late at night, when Liam was already sleeping soundly under the effects of alcohol, his phone on the nightstand lit up with a message. I glanced over and, without needing to unlock it, read the short text on the lock screen. "I'm so scared. People are looking at me funny. What if we just end this?" It was a message from Sophia. I smiled with disdain. Their devilish alliance was more fragile than I thought. A little social pressure and it was already starting to crack. I didn't delete the message. I left it there for Liam to read when he woke up, so he could see that his little mistress was also trembling, and that he, the supposed man, was at risk of losing everything. His drunkenness tonight might help him forget reality for a moment, but tomorrow, upon waking, the real nightmare would have only just begun. I turned off the light. Darkness flooded the room, but in my eyes, the path ahead was clearer than ever. The pressure of the rumors not only kept Liam awake, but also deeply affected Sophia, the weakest link in this story. Thanks to the detective's information and her behavior in the family chat, I realized that Sophia was on the verge of a panic attack. She started acting strangely. She would be online late at night, posting vague and melancholic statuses about life and loneliness, and then delete them a few minutes later. Every night, around 1 or 2 a.m., when Liam thought I was asleep, he would sneak into the bathroom with his phone. His whispers, though low, reached me in the silence of the night. I heard the irritation in his voice and the sobs on the other end of the line. Sophia was tormenting him. She was afraid of her colleagues' stares, afraid of Gavin's unconditional love while she carried an enormous guilt. She wanted Liam to take responsibility, to protect her, or at least to give her some kind of guarantee. To relieve the pressure, Sophia spiraled into compulsive shopping. The detective sent me receipts from luxury brands and expensive cosmetics that she paid for without batting an eye. I knew that money didn't come from her modest salary or from what Gavin gave her, but from the savings Liam had been secretly passing to her. Seeing the figures in that covert financial report, I felt a sharp pain. The money I had worked so hard to earn had become the tranquilizer for an adulteress. But what caught my attention most was not the luxuries, but a photo the detective had taken the previous afternoon. Sophia, wearing a mask, oversized sunglasses, and looking furtive, was entering a private gynecology clinic hidden in a small alley. She was inside for almost an hour and came out with a distraught face, clutching her purse against her belly as if hiding a terrible secret. My woman's intuition told me that a storm, much bigger than anything before, was about to break. Sophia's visit to the gynecologist at this delicate moment, coupled with her panic and the late-night calls, could only point to one thing. She had an ace up her sleeve, a weapon that could either destroy everything or save her situation. A small life was forming. I sat on the sofa, looking at the night sky, black and starless, and a chill ran down my spine. If Sophia was really pregnant and the child was Liam's, the tragedy of this family would reach its peak. What would happen to Gavin and my parents? How would I face such a cruel truth? But I clenched my fists tightly, my nails dug into my skin. Whatever happened, I couldn't fall apart. I had come too far to turn back. If she planned to use that baby as a shield to pressure Liam or to tie down Gavin, I would turn that child into the rope that would hang them both. I would wait for her to show her cards, and then I would show everyone the disgusting face of those who invoke love to commit despicable acts. The storm was gathering. The heavy sky seemed about to collapse, heralding a turbulent tomorrow. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and prepared for the next blow, a blow called blood ties. That weekend, a fine, cold drizzle fell over the city. The early winter chill seeped into the bones, but in my parents' small house, the atmosphere was warm. It smelled of home cooking and was filled with laughter. My parents, simple, hard-working people, only wanted to see their children happy. So every time we gathered, they would slave away in the kitchen, not letting anyone help them. I was in the living room peeling fruit, but my ears were attentive to everything, and my gaze never left Sophia, who was sitting huddled in a corner of the sofa, her face pale and with dark circles from sleepless nights. The food was served with all the delicacies my mother had prepared since morning: roast chicken, a beef stew, glazed ham, and good wine. Gavin, my brother, with his usual carefree attitude, kept serving his wife food, telling her stories from work and plans for the future. He looked at her with absolute love and trust. Seeing him, my heart ached. It was like watching an innocent child playing on the edge of a cliff. Suddenly, Sophia put her silverware down on the table. The sharp, metallic sound cut through the conversation. She covered her mouth, hesitated for a moment, and after taking a deep breath, as if to gather courage, she said in a trembling voice, "Dad, Mom, Amelia, Gavin, I have something to tell you." Everyone fell silent. Their gazes were fixed on her. Sophia glanced sideways at Liam, my husband. That look contained a mixture of plea and threat. Then she lowered her head and whispered, "I'm pregnant." Her words were like an atomic bomb dropped on the table, creating a sepulchral silence that erupted into a whirlwind of mixed emotions. Gavin was stunned for a few seconds and then shouted with joy, jumping up to hug his wife. "Oh my God, really? I'm going to be a father. Dad, Mom, I'm going to be a father." My parents were beaming. My mother, with tears in her eyes, clasped her hands and thanked God. She quickly served her daughter-in-law a plate of hot stew. "Eat, child, eat, so my grandchild will grow strong. No wonder you've been looking so pale lately." Amidst this euphoria, only 3 people felt something different. Sophia forced a smile, a grimace that looked like a cry. She placed her hand on her belly, not to protect it, but as if clinging to a final lifeline. I remained motionless like a statue, observing everything with an icy gaze. But the one who reacted most violently was Liam. Upon hearing the words, "I'm pregnant," his face lost all color. His silverware fell from his hands, making a loud clatter amidst the congratulations. He stared at Sophia, his eyes wide with panic and terror, muttering unintelligible words. Gavin, too happy to notice, bent down to pick up the silverware, laughing. "Brother-in-law, are you so happy your hands are shaking? I'm sure you were also very eager to be an uncle." Liam started and, picking up the silverware, tried to muster a smile that was more pathetic than a lament. Yes, I'm very happy. Congratulations." He drank a glass of water in one gulp to hide his trembling, but sweat was already beading on his forehead. I read his dark soul in that instant. He was terrified. This pregnancy was not in his plans. It was a dangerous variable that could destroy everything he was trying to hide. Sophia had used the baby as her last card to force him to take responsibility, or at least to tie down Gavin and secure an escape route. I raised my glass of water, and with a calm but double-edged voice, I addressed Sophia. "Congratulations to both of you. What great joy. Sophia, a pregnancy is a very important thing. Make sure you go to all your checkups to know exactly how many weeks you are and take good care of yourself." Upon hearing me mention the weeks of gestation, Sophia was startled. Her face turned pale. She quickly bent down to drink soup, avoiding my inquisitive gaze. The meal continued amidst the laughter of my parents and Gavin, but under the table, legs were trembling with fear, and in each of our hearts, a storm was beginning to brew. After the party, we said goodbye to my parents and drove home as night fell. The interior of my husband's luxurious car was plunged into a dense, heavy silence, so much so that you could hear the hum of the engine and the sound of the tires on the wet asphalt. Liam drove with his hands gripping the steering wheel, his knuckles white with tension. His gaze was fixed on the road, but I knew his mind was in chaos. The shock of the news from lunch had not yet dissipated. The pregnancy was like a rock pressing on his chest, making it hard for him to breathe. I, in the passenger seat, leaned my head back and pretended to sleep, but I was actually observing his every move. I knew he was mired in uncertainty, wondering whose child it was, Gavin's, or the result of his torrid afternoon trysts in motels with Sophia. That doubt was eating him alive, turning him into a pathetic coward. I broke the sepulchral silence. My voice, though soft, resonated in the small space, making Liam jump as if he had received an electric shock. "Is something wrong, honey? I just called your name. No need to be so startled." Liam swallowed, trying to remain calm. "No, I was just focused on the road. What did you want?" I turned to look at him in profile. The yellowish light from the street lamps filtering through the window revealed beads of sweat on his forehead, despite the cold air conditioning. I smiled. A smile that didn't reach my eyes. "I'm so happy for Sophia and Gavin. Though it's strange, don't you think? Gavin is away for work all the time. They've barely seen each other. But what a lucky shot, huh? A gift from heaven." My comment was like a poisoned arrow aimed directly at his deepest fear. Liam swerved the car, and it wobbled for a moment before he regained control. "Well, they're newlyweds. These things happen." It was probably during one of Gavin's quick visits home. His voice was a broken whisper. He didn't dare look at me. I continued my attack with the same innocent tone. "But if I remember correctly, Gavin has been away for almost a month and just got back yesterday. And Sophia said she's several weeks along. I'll have to remember to ask her. I'll call her tomorrow and tell her to get a detailed ultrasound. With today's technology, you can find out the exact day of conception to see if it lines up with Gavin's return. We wouldn't want there to be any confusion and for the poor guy to get upset." Liam fell silent, not daring to say anything else. I saw his Adam's apple bob up and down, his face a mask of pure tension. He was afraid that the truth would come out. If the pregnancy coincided with Gavin's absence and with the days he and Sophia were seeing each other in secret, it would be the death sentence for his honor and his life. I turned to look out the window, watching the city lights pass by, and smiled to myself. His silence was the clearest answer. He didn't want that child. For him, it was a disaster, the living proof of his sin. For Sophia, it was a lifeline. The two accomplices were starting to have opposing interests, and that was the crack through which I would slip to shatter their devilish alliance. "Hey," I said just before we entered the garage, my voice as light as air. Sophia's face didn't look like that of a woman happy about her pregnancy. She seemed more like she was afraid of something. Didn't you get that impression? Liam didn't answer. He just floored the accelerator, and the car shot into the dark garage, just as he was diving headfirst into a dead end in his own life. After that night, the atmosphere in both my home and Gavin's became strangely tense. Gavin was still floating on a cloud of impending fatherhood, calling me every day to tell me about Sophia's cravings. He treated her like a queen. Meanwhile, Sophia and Liam, the two culprits, were living in the hell they had created for themselves. I knew Sophia was using the pregnancy to pressure Liam. She wanted security, money, or even a status, and Liam was trying by all means to deny his responsibility and get rid of that burden. Sitting in my office, I looked at the ultrasound Sophia had posted on Facebook with an ambiguous message. "A gift from God. Mommy will protect you at all costs." I smiled with disdain. Protect him at all costs? Or use him to blackmail her lover? I needed to know for sure who the father was, but I couldn't act directly. I couldn't take Sophia for a paternity test. It would alert them and hurt Gavin before the time was right. I called Evelyn. "Evelyn, I need your help. Do you know anyone at the clinic where Sophia has her checkups? I need to access her medical records, but with complete discretion." Evelyn sighed on the other end of the line. "What are you planning? Stealing her records? That's a crime. Are you crazy?" I smiled bitterly. "No. I just need one piece of information: the expected due date. From there, I can deduce the date of conception. I need an excuse for Gavin to start suspecting on his own. If I tell him now, he won't believe me. He's blind with love." Evelyn was silent for a moment and then agreed. While waiting for the information, I began to execute my plan to divide them. I knew Liam was terrified. He was afraid Sophia would do something crazy and tell everything if he didn't meet her demands. I had to push that fear to the limit. That night, while Liam was smoking on the balcony, I brought him a glass of orange juice with a tone full of concern. "Honey, I stopped by to see Sophia today, and she was crying her eyes out. She says she's stressed from the pregnancy, that she's afraid Gavin won't believe the child is his because he's been away for so long. I told her not to worry, that Gavin is a good man. But she kept muttering strange things, like she was being forced to have an abortion, that someone didn't want to take responsibility. I didn't understand anything. Do you think she's hiding something from us?" Upon hearing my words, the cigarette fell from his hands. He turned abruptly, his face as pale as wax. She said that? Who's forcing her to have an abortion?" I shrugged with the most innocent face in the world. "I don't know, she was just crying and saying that. It seemed very strange to me. Who would want her to have an abortion?" My sentence, left hanging in the air, made Liam start to tremble. He ran his hands through his hair, pacing back and forth like a wounded animal. He was thinking that Sophia planned to betray him, exposing him to me with hints. The fear of being discovered filled him with resentment towards her. He began to see her as a dangerous and treacherous woman he should distrust. On the other hand, I also worked on Sophia. From a fake profile, I sent her an anonymous message: "Your lover is trying to shirk his responsibility. He's looking for lawyers to hide his assets, and plans to divorce, to go abroad. You and your child are just an obstacle. Be careful." Sophia, upon receiving that message, would go crazy. She would think Liam was deceiving her, that he planned to abandon them to save himself. Distrust, fear, and greed were corroding their illicit relationship. They were no longer lovers, but enemies. One wanted to use the baby as a weapon, the other saw it as a catastrophe. And I, in the middle, just needed to fan the flames a little for that alliance to be consumed in the fire of its own betrayal. While the fire in my home spread silently, my brilliant lawyer friend brought me another shocking piece of news. News that made me realize that the man with whom I had shared my life was not just an unscrupulous adulterer, but a true white-collar criminal. That afternoon, Evelyn summoned me to her office. She placed a thick file on the table, looking at me with a grave and compassionate expression. "Amelia, prepare yourself. The problem isn't just that he used household money to support his mistress. It's much worse." I opened the file. Figures, contracts, and invoices danced before my eyes. They were proof that Liam had been using his position as head of purchasing to conspire with suppliers, inflate prices, and receive million-dollar kickbacks. That money didn't go into his account but was funneled through shell accounts to a slush fund he had created for his own purposes. "Look at this," Evelyn said, pointing to a transfer marked in red. "This money comes from a construction company. It was transferred to his mother's account with the memo loan repayment, but it's actually his 10% commission on a cement contract from last month. In the last 2 years, he's embezzled almost $1 million. Amelia, this is misappropriation of funds. It's a very serious crime. If the company finds out, not only will he be fired, but he could end up in prison for years." I listened to Evelyn with a ringing in my ears. I felt the floor open up beneath me. I knew Liam was greedy, that he had his schemes, but I never imagined he was so reckless and stupid. He was risking his career, his honor, and his freedom for limitless ambition. What was he using that dirty money for? To buy Sophia a house? To live a life of luxury? Or to prepare a future without me? Rage consumed me. But it was no longer the jealousy of a betrayed wife. It was the contempt of an honest businesswoman for a fraudster. For 10 years I had built my reputation. I had always taught him to live with dignity, to earn money through his own efforts. And meanwhile, behind my back, he was engaged in these shady dealings. He had not only betrayed me but had betrayed the most basic human values. I closed the file and took a deep breath to calm down. "Thank you, Evelyn. This is the death sentence I needed. I thought a divorce and a division of assets would be enough, but not now. I'm not going to let him get away with it. If he dared to do it, he will have to face the consequences. I'll keep this, and at the right moment I'll show him how dearly greed is paid. I left the office and drove aimlessly through the city. Watching people come and go, I remembered the early days of our marriage. We were poor but happy. We ate instant ramen and dreamed of a small house. Now we had a big house, we didn't lack money, but the people had changed beyond recognition. Liam had been blinded by money and desire. He had burned the bridge that connected him to decency. When I got home, I saw Liam watching television, trying to look calm, but with an anxious look in his eyes. I looked at him and felt nothing for him, only disgust and pity for a wasted life. He didn't know yet that the scythe was hanging over his head, and that the one wielding it was the wife he had always underestimated. That afternoon, the late autumn sun cast a weak, golden light on the asphalt, unable to dispel the biting cold. Sitting in my office, with a cup of cold coffee in my hand, I stared at my phone screen, where Gavin's number appeared. I took a deep breath, holding back a sigh, and told myself that this was bitter but necessary medicine. A sharp pain, but better than letting my brother live in deceit for the rest of his life. I pressed the call button. It had barely rung twice when Gavin's cheerful, carefree voice answered, "Hey, Amelia. What's up? I was just thinking of taking Sophia out for a nice steak dinner tonight." Hearing the happiness in his voice, I felt as if a knife were twisting in my gut, but I forced myself to sound calm and attentive. "Hi, Gavin. I was just calling to see how you two were doing. Hey, I remembered something the other day. The private clinic Sophia goes to, I think I know someone who works there, a friend from high school who's now the head nurse. Her name is Lydia. I don't know if Sophia knows her." There was a brief silence on the other end. Gavin was probably asking his wife. Then I heard his voice again, enthusiastic. "Wow, what a coincidence. Let me ask her." "Honey, Amelia says she has a friend who's the head nurse at your clinic. Her name is Lydia. Does that ring a bell?" I held my breath, imagining Sophia's face losing all color in that instant. After about 10 seconds of silence, Gavin's voice came back, this time with a hint of doubt. "She says she doesn't know her, that she just goes for her checkups and that's it. She doesn't pay attention to names. Why do you ask?" I smiled slightly. My voice was laden with false concern but carried considerable weight. "Oh, I was just thinking that if it's a trustworthy place, it's better. I was going to call Lydia to ask her to keep an eye on Sophia, to take good care of her, and while she's at it, to check her records to see how the tests are going, the exact due date, so we can prepare better. With people you know, you always feel more at ease. Lydia is very meticulous. Nothing gets past her." My phrase, "nothing gets past her," was like an arrow straight to the target. I heard a noise on the other end of the line, as if something had fallen. Gavin's voice sounded alarmed. "Careful, honey. What's wrong? Did you drop your glass? Did you burn yourself?" Sophia's voice came through, trembling and full of fear. "No, nothing's wrong. I just felt a little dizzy." I smiled coldly and added another psychological blow. She felt dizzy? Well, all the more reason to be careful. Okay, I'll call Lydia right now. I'll tell her to review the records this afternoon and let me know. We're family. We have to take care of each other. Hearing that, I knew Sophia would be terrified. If my fictional character, Lydia, reviewed her records, she would discover that the gestational age revealed a conception date that coincided with Gavin's absence and with the days she was seeing my husband. Okay, I'll tell her. I'll let you go. Sophia's not feeling well and I'm going to take her to rest." Gavin hung up quickly. His voice no longer sounded so cheerful. It was now tinged with worry. I put the phone down on the table and looked out the window. Gray clouds were gathering, darkening the sky. I knew that on the other end of the line, Sophia was living the most terrifying moments of her life. She wouldn't dare let me request a review. She would try to prevent it at all costs, and the only way to do that was to find her accomplice to plan a strategy. The fish had taken the bait. Now I just had to wait for it to squirm and reveal its final mistake. Just as I had predicted, Sophia's panic reached its peak. She couldn't stand by and wait for her end. Immediately after my call, the GPS tracker I had secretly placed under Liam's car started to move. The signal blinked on my phone like the racing hearts of the two culprits. Liam left the office earlier than usual with the excuse of an important meeting, but he didn't head downtown. Instead, he sped towards the outskirts, where there were discreet and secluded cafes and restaurants. In my car, parked a short distance from his office exit, I silently followed the red dot on my phone screen. It began to rain. Thick drops hit the windshield, creating a somber atmosphere. I drove automatically, my heart empty, as if I were attending the funeral of my 10-year marriage. Liam's final destination was a secluded cafe tucked away in a suburban alley, a place with private rooms and lush gardens, perfect for secret dates or for culprits to hatch their plans. I parked at a safe distance, enough not to be discovered but with a view of the entrance. 15 minutes later, a taxi arrived. Sophia got out, covered in a trench coat and a mask, looking furtive. She looked both ways and slipped inside. Seeing the scene, I felt a mixture of bitter laughter and pity. Two people who had sworn eternal love to their partners were now hiding like rats, fearing the light and the truth. I stayed in the car with the engine off. The cold outside began to seep in, but I didn't feel it. In my mind, I imagined the conversation unfolding inside. Sophia would surely be crying, blaming Liam, demanding that he take responsibility for the pregnancy or silence me. And Liam, that coward, would be desperate, looking for excuses to shirk his responsibility. Egoism and fear would lead them to attack each other, and that would be the moment the curtain would fall. I took out my phone and wrote a message. My fingers slid across the screen, each letter sharp as a knife. I didn't send it immediately. I saved it in drafts, waiting for the perfect moment. I needed an eyewitness, someone who would see the raw reality with their own eyes, so that the pain would sever any bond, so that no one could lie or deceive anymore. Time passed slowly. The rain continued to fall. I looked at the clock. More than 30 minutes had passed since Sophia had gone in. Enough time for an argument, for confessions, and for my patience to turn into action. I took a deep breath. I regained my composure. Gavin was at the construction site, overseeing a concrete pour before nightfall. The noise of the mixer and the shouts of the workers had him completely absorbed. Suddenly, his phone vibrated in his pocket. He wiped his cement-covered hands on his pants and took it out. A message from an unknown number. He almost deleted it, thinking it was spam, but the first line made him freeze, his heart in his throat. Your wife Sophia and your brother-in-law Liam are meeting in secret at the Lotus Lounge, VIP Room 3. Go now and find out whose baby your wife is expecting. Don't be the fool who raises another man's child. Gavin read the message 3 times. Each word was like a drill in his brain, paralyzing his senses. He couldn't believe it. Sophia, his sweet, good wife, whom he loved more than his own life. Liam, his respected brother-in-law, who always helped him. How could they do this to him? But his instinct told him something was wrong. The suspicion, which had already begun to grow with his sister's hints, now burned fiercely. Trembling, he called Sophia. The phone rang again and again, but no one answered. He called Liam. Same result. The phone was off or out of service. Their silence was the clearest confession. The blood rushed to his head. He threw his hard hat to the ground and yelled at the foreman, "That's it for today. Everybody go home." Without further explanation, he ran to his truck and sped off like a madman, despite the rain and slippery asphalt. In his mind, there was only one thought. He had to go there. He had to see it with his own eyes. The happy images of his family, Sophia's smile, Liam's encouraging pats on the back, all crumbled in his mind, turning into sharp fragments that tore at his heart. The 10-mile journey felt like an eternity. He drove, screaming under the rain. Tears mixed with the water, salty on his lips. He prayed it was a bad joke, that when he arrived, he would find nothing, that his wife would be at home resting. But his reason reminded him of Sophia's strange behavior, Liam's evasive gaze at the last family meal. When his truck screeched to a halt in front of the lounge, I, from my car, saw my brother, drenched, his eyes bloodshot like a wounded animal. Without asking anyone, he burst into the place with a fury that made the employees step aside in fear. I gripped the steering wheel, my heart pounding, watching in pain as my brother entered the den of betrayal. Gavin ran like a whirlwind down the wooden hallway, his thundering steps drowning out the sound of the rain. He stopped in front of the door of VIP Room 3, the place indicated in the message. His breathing was ragged, his chest heaving violently. From inside came the sobs of a woman and the shouts of a man. Sounds so familiar they left him paralyzed. What do we do now? Amelia suspects something. I'm so scared. What if Gavin finds out? Sophia's voice, trembling. Just shut up. Why didn't you take the pill? And now you're blaming me? I told you to get an abortion. Liam's voice, cold and cruel. Gavin couldn't take it anymore. With all his might, he kicked the door. Bang! The door flew open, crashing against the wall. The scene revealed before his eyes was cruder than any nightmare. In the dim light, Sophia was sitting on the floor crying, her clothes disheveled. Liam stood in front of her, a wad of cash in his hand, about to throw it at her. When they saw Gavin at the door, drenched, his eyes red as hell, they froze. Gavin, Sophia stammered, pale as a ghost. Liam dropped the bills, which fluttered to the floor. He stood with his mouth open, trembling, unable to utter a word. Gavin looked at the two people he loved most in the world, a lump in his throat. The pain was so immense it paralyzed him. Only his eyes shed 2 rivers of burning tears. Why? Why, you two? Why did you do this to me? He cried out in a heartbreaking wail. He lunged at Liam, not to hit him, but to grab him by the shirt collar and slam him against the wall. You're my brother-in-law, my brother. How could you sleep with my wife? How did you dare? Liam, terrified, tried to break free, pleading, Gavin, calm down. Let me explain. It's not what it looks like. She was the one who seduced me. Liam's cowardly excuse was the last straw. Gavin punched him in the face. Pow! Blood spurted from Liam's nose as he fell to the floor, moaning. Sophia screamed and clung to Gavin's legs. Don't hit him, please. It was my fault. He forced me. Gavin looked at the woman kneeling at his feet, the one he once swore to protect. Now she filled him with infinite disgust. He kicked her away. Get off me. Don't touch me. You make me sick. The child you're carrying is a bastard. Trash. I, from the doorway, witnessed the entire tragedy, and tears streamed down my cheeks. I felt no satisfaction, only immense pain for my brother. The truth had come out, at too high a price. I entered the room. My cold, firm voice resonated amidst the chaos. That's enough, Gavin. Leave him. Hitting him will only dirty your hands. Let the law and their consciences punish them. My appearance stunned them all. Liam looked at me with swollen eyes. Sophia bowed her head, not daring to look at me. Gavin turned to me and broke down, crying like a child. He ran into my arms, trembling. I stroked my brother's soaked back as I looked at Liam and Sophia with contempt. Get ready. The curtain has fallen. The air in the VIP room of the lounge smelled of dampness and the rot of a newly discovered lie. Sophia's sobs echoed, but no one felt compassion anymore. Kneeling on the cold floor, she clung to Gavin's pants, pleading, Gavin, believe me, please, I never wanted to betray you. It was him. It was Liam who forced me. He threatened to ruin you, to leave you jobless. I did it for you, to protect our family. I, leaning against the doorframe, watched the pathetic performance with a sneer of contempt. Human shamelessness knows no bounds. Liam, his nose bleeding, hearing Sophia blame him for everything, exploded. You lying bitch, what are you saying? That I forced you? You were the one who came on to me, who told me your husband was useless in bed and couldn't satisfy you. He kicked Sophia, who fell, hitting her head against the table. But she got up, disheveled like a fury, and lunged at him, scratching. You coward, you miserable wretch. When you were enjoying it, you called me your love, your treasure. And now that we've been caught, you wash your hands of it. You told me your wife was a piece of wood, that you were sick of that old hag. The ones who, just minutes ago, were passionate lovers, were now tearing each other apart, revealing their dirtiest secrets. Gavin, in the midst of the storm, watched them with empty eyes. His disappointment had hit rock bottom. Enough! He shouted. His voice was hoarse but commanding, silencing them. You act so well, better than a soap opera. So, to you, I was just a clown, a fool to be manipulated, right? Liam crawled towards him. Gavin, listen to me. This woman is a harpy. I just had a moment of weakness. Gavin recoiled, looking at him with disgust. Shut up. Don't speak my name with your filthy mouth. Brotherhood? A brother sleeps with your wife and turns you into the cuckold who raises his child. Liam was speechless. Sophia started crying again. Gavin, our child. Think about our child. Gavin's gaze fell on Sophia's belly. He hesitated for a moment, but then his eyes turned icy. Are you sure it's my child and not this bastard's? And even if it were, a mother as deceitful and promiscuous as you doesn't deserve to raise it. The phrase was the final blow. Sophia collapsed, sobbing silently. The luxurious private room was now a desolate battlefield, filled with the remnants of trust and honor, permeated with the stench of betrayal and despair. Gavin clenched his fists, on the verge of exploding again. I knew it was time to intervene. I couldn't let my brother, in a fit of rage, end up in legal trouble. Gavin, stop, I said, stepping between him and Liam. It's not worth it. He's not worth you ruining your future over. Gavin looked at me, his eyes full of tears. Amelia, it hurts so much. I hate them. I hugged him. I know. But let's go. Staying here will only hurt us more. I'll take care of the punishment. I promise you, they will not go unpunished. My calm seemed to soothe him. He rested his head on my shoulder, breaking down. I turned to Liam and Sophia, who were huddled in a corner. My gaze was one of pure contempt. I took out my phone. Have you finished your performance? Well, listen carefully. Everything you've done, everything you've said today, and even your encounters in my own bed, I have it all recorded. Hearing the word recorded, Liam's face fell apart. What? What did you say? You recorded everything? I smiled coldly. Not just that. I have a 2-minute video of you two rolling around in my marital bed, your disgusting chats, the bank transfers. I have everything. I was thinking of showing you a minimum of respect, but I see you don't deserve it. So don't blame me for being cruel. Sophia fainted, or pretended to. Liam collapsed into a chair, sweating profusely. He knew that with that evidence, his life and career were over. I took Gavin by the arm and turned my back on them. Let's go, Gavin. Let them devour each other in their own filth. There's no room for people like them in our home. As we left the lounge, the rain had subsided, but the cold wind still blew. Gavin walked beside me like an automaton. I didn't take him to his apartment or to my parents' house. I drove to Evelyn's apartment. It was the safest place, where he could vent without anyone seeing him and where I would show him the rawest truth so he could fully open his eyes. I watched him cry silently in the rearview mirror. My soul ached, but I knew it was a necessary pain. He had to suffer to the depths to be able to excise that tumor and start over. Hang in there, brother, I thought. After the storm, the sun always comes out. Evelyn's apartment on the 25th floor was an oasis of peace. Evelyn had prepared a room and a pot of hot tea. Without asking any questions, she left us alone. Gavin sat on the sofa, trembling, his gaze lost. I knew that words of comfort would be useless. He needed a dose of reality. Gavin, look at this, I said, showing him the 2-minute video. His expression went from bewilderment to horror, and finally to the deepest disgust. In the video, his sweet wife moaned under his brother-in-law's body, insulting her own husband. Gavin couldn't bear it. He swatted the phone away and ran to the bathroom to vomit. He vomited bile, trust, and the blind love he had professed for her. I watched him from the doorway with a heavy heart. His pain was my pain, but I was relieved that he finally knew the truth. When he came out, his face was pale and gaunt, but his eyes had changed. There was no longer weakness, but a flame of hatred and a cold determination. Amelia, I was wrong. I've been a fool. I killed myself working to give her a better life, and she treated me like an idiot. I took his hand. It's not your fault. It's the fault of people's wickedness. Now you have to be strong and resolve this. What are you going to do about Sophia? Gavin was silent for a moment, and then looked at me with steely determination. An immediate divorce. I don't want to see her again. The child, if it's mine, I'll fight for custody. If not, I'll throw them both out on the street. I nodded, admiring his firmness. Good. I'll help you with the paperwork. And as for Liam, he won't get off easy either. Tomorrow, he'll find out what's coming to him. That night, we stayed together in silence. The storm had passed, and although the dawn would bring more battles, we knew that justice was on our side. The next morning, I woke up with unusual mental clarity. While Gavin slept, I met with Evelyn in the living room. On the table was a sealed file, the death sentence for Liam's career and life, with all the evidence we had gathered. "Everything ready, Evelyn?" I asked. She nodded, pushing the file towards me. "All set. The complaint is drafted, addressed to the board of directors, the audit committee, and the union at his company. I've attached a USB drive with all the recordings, photos, and bank statements. I just need your go-ahead to send it." I didn't hesitate for a second. Send it. Let him taste the bitterest failure. Evelyn smiled, and with one click, the bomb was activated. Less than 2 hours later, the chain of events was unleashed. The company called an emergency meeting. Liam was summoned to the CEO's office. When he came out, his face was a picture. In his hand was a letter of suspension without pay. Immediately after, security guards escorted him to collect his things and expelled him from the building under the stunned gazes and whispers of hundreds of employees. His reputation, built with so much effort, was shattered in an instant. The news of his infidelity and corruption spread like wildfire. His name became synonymous with betrayal and dishonor. Partners turned their backs on him, friends avoided him. His phone rang incessantly with calls from creditors and messages of contempt. I, from Evelyn's house, savored a cup of tea, imagining his pathetic situation with a sense of lightness. My punishment had only just begun. That afternoon, I received a call from an unknown number. It was Liam. I didn't answer. I let it ring until it stopped, and then I blocked the number. I didn't want to hear his pleas. Justice, both professional and personal, had just begun its course. I got up and went to wake Gavin. "Get up, brother. The day has just begun. We have a lot to do." That afternoon, while I was organizing papers, the doorbell rang insistently. When I opened it, I found 2 men from a bank. They handed me a foreclosure notice. The figure took my breath away. $300,000. The house, our home, had been mortgaged by Liam behind my back 6 months ago. I remembered the day he gave me a stack of papers, saying they were for a company guarantee. Trusting, I signed without reading. And now that signature was facing me with ruin. What had he spent that money on? On luxuries for Sophia, on an apartment in her name, and on failed cryptocurrency investments. Just then, Liam arrived, haggard and reeking of alcohol. Seeing the men from the bank, he tried to run, but I stood in his way. "Where are you going? Come in and face the consequences of your actions. $300,000. You're unbelievable." Liam knelt, crying and begging. "Amelia, save me. Pay the debt, please. If they take the house, we'll be on the street." I looked at him with infinite disgust. "There is no us. I will sell this house to pay the debt. I'll keep the rest as compensation for my lost youth, and you will leave with nothing. You mortgaged my trust, and now you will pay with your life." He knew I was serious. I was no longer the submissive woman he could manipulate. I was the creditor of his life. Meanwhile, Gavin returned to his apartment and packed all of Sophia's belongings into 2 suitcases. When she arrived, she found her things in the hallway in the rain. "Gavin, are you kicking me out?" "I'm pregnant," she cried. He looked at her with icy coldness. "Don't use the child as an excuse. Go to your parents or your lover. This house is not a refuge for adulteresses." He slammed the door in her face, leaving her alone with her humiliation. Desperate, Sophia went to the apartment Liam had bought her, but found him at the door, drunk and out of his mind. "Witch!" he shouted, slapping her. "It's your fault I've lost everything," Sophia cried. "You deceived me. You promised to take care of us." Liam laughed like a madman. "Take care of you? I got that money by mortgaging my wife's house, and now I've lost it all. Get out of here." He kicked her suitcases, scattering her clothes on the street. Sophia, sitting amidst the disaster in the rain, began to laugh, a bitter, chilling laugh. She had dreamed of being a queen and ended up buried in a mine of fool's gold. The next day, I met Liam at a cafe near the courthouse. I arrived early and placed the signed divorce petition and the file of evidence on the table. When he entered, I barely recognized him. He was gaunt, with a grown-out beard and deep, dark circles. "Amelia, do you really want a divorce? Can't you give me a chance?" he pleaded, his voice broken. I took a sip of tea. "A chance? You've repaid 10 years of sacrifice with betrayal, debt, and corruption. Look at this file. If I hand it over to the police, how many years do you think you'll spend in prison?" Liam glanced at the papers. His face turned ashen. He knelt in the middle of the cafe. "Amelia, I beg you, don't send me to prison. I'll do whatever you want." I didn't feel a shred of pity. "Get up. I'm giving you 2 options. Either you sign the divorce papers, leave with nothing, and let me have the rest to pay the debt, or we see each other in a criminal trial and you lose everything, including your freedom." Trembling, he took the pen and signed. His signature, crooked and shaky, put an end to 10 years of marriage. He bowed his head, crying, not out of remorse, but for the material loss. I stood up and left without saying goodbye. The news of our divorce and Liam's firing spread through our hometown like wildfire. As expected, my mother-in-law was the first to react. She showed up in the city that same night, furious, ready to put the daughter-in-law who had ruined her son in her place. "You heartless woman, what have you done to my son to make him end up like this? A man can have a slip-up, and a good wife should know how to forgive and guide him back, but you've destroyed him." I let her vent. I understood her maternal blindness. When she finished, breathless, I offered her a glass of water. "Drink, mother-in-law. And now, before you judge me, look at this." I connected my phone to the television and played the 2-minute video, then the photos, the messages, and the bank statements. At first, she refused to watch, but Sophia's moans and Liam's lewd voice left her petrified. She saw her son, her pride, committing adultery with his sister-in-law, diverting thousands of dollars to his mistress while she lived poorly in the town. When it was all over, she sat in silence, pale, her hand on her chest. Tears rolled down her wrinkled cheeks. "My dear daughter, I didn't know he was so miserable. I'm sorry. I misjudged you. You poor thing." Her pain was sincere. She was also a victim of her son's lies. "It's not your fault, mother-in-law. It's his fault. I can't go on living with a man like that." She left, crestfallen, carrying the shame. She no longer defended her son. The truth had crushed her. For me, it was the final chapter. It was time to start living for myself. With the divorce decree in hand, the first thing I did was put the apartment up for sale. It was an empty shell filled with dirty memories. I wanted to erase any trace of them, like excising a tumor. On moving day, as I packed my things into boxes, I saw our wedding photo. 2 smiling young people vowing eternal love. What irony! I didn't tear it up. I simply took it down, placed it against the wall, and left it there. A tribute to a past that no longer existed. I took only what was mine: my books, my plants, and a heart full of scars that was beginning to heal. I handed the keys to a young couple, wishing them the happiness I had not found within those walls. With the money from the sale, after paying off the debt, I bought a small house with a garden in a quiet area on the outskirts of the city. I invited my parents and Gavin to live with me. The first night in the new house, lying in my bed, listening to the croaking of frogs, I felt a peace I hadn't experienced in years. I had lost a cheating husband and a luxurious house, but I had regained my sleep. Sometimes, a loss is the beginning of a reunion with oneself. After the storm, my brother Gavin became a quiet man. The carefree smile had disappeared from his face, replaced by a deep, mature gaze. He left his old job, a place filled with painful memories, and for a while he withdrew into himself, consumed by cigarettes and silence. I didn't pressure him. I simply left his favorite food at his door and sometimes sat beside him in silence so he knew he wasn't alone. One day, he came out of his room, shaved and dressed in a clean shirt. He smiled at me, a smile still fragile but alive. "Amelia, I'm okay. I can't go on like this. I have to take care of our parents and you." He found a new job at a foreign company and immersed himself in it, not to escape, but to rebuild himself. On weekends, he helped my father in the garden, and laughter filled the house again. I knew his wound was healing. From Sophia, I learned that she had given birth to a boy who was the spitting image of Liam. He, having disappeared and hounded by debts, didn't send her a single cent. Sophia's life was a constant struggle, selling cheap clothes online while enduring the insults of people who called her the other woman. One day, Gavin saw her in a live stream, haggard and bitter. He watched her for a moment and then turned off his phone with indifference. "You reap what you sow, right, sis?" he said to me. And he went about his business as if she were a complete stranger. His calmness reassured me. When there is no more hatred, it means that forgiveness, or at least forgetfulness, has arrived. Our new house filled with life. Dinners became the best part of the day, a space of laughter and simple anecdotes without lies or secrets. Looking at my family, I felt an overwhelming emotion. The storm had washed away the rotten parts, leaving only the solid foundations of family love. We had survived together. One night, Evelyn came to visit. Sitting on the porch under a starry sky, she told me, "You're different, Amelia. More serene, more radiant. They say a woman is most beautiful when she belongs to no one." I smiled. "It's not that. It's that now I belong to myself and my family. I've wasted so much time chasing ghosts. Now I want to live in the moment." One Sunday morning, as I was enjoying a coffee and a book in the garden, Evelyn appeared again. This time, she brought a business plan. "What's up, boss? Are you going to rest forever? You have several important offers on the table, million-dollar projects." My eyes lit up. The passion for my work, dormant for so long, awakened. Of course I am. I'm 35 years old, with a life ahead of me and bills to pay. A woman, with or without a man, needs her own career and her own money to walk with her head held high. Evelyn nodded. "That's my girl. Hey, and seriously now, don't you regret being so hard on them? They say Liam is working as a laborer on the border to escape his debts, and that Sophia barely has enough to eat." I put down my coffee cup and looked her in the eye. Regret? Never. Being cruel to the wicked is being compassionate with myself. If I hadn't made a clean break, the ones who would be destroyed now would be my brother and me. Karma is fair, Evelyn. He who sows the wind reaps the whirlwind. I just helped the harvest arrive a little sooner. I looked up at the blue sky, where white clouds floated lazily. The life ahead of me was a blank canvas. There might be more storms, but now I felt strong enough to face them. I was no longer the weak, dependent woman of yesterday. I was Amelia, the woman who had walked through the hurricane and was now painting her own sky. I took a deep breath, filling myself with the scent of the earth, of freedom, and of hope. My heart, after breaking into 1,000 pieces, was beating strongly again, ready to embrace the future. The door to the past had closed forever, and a new, larger, and brighter one was opening before me.